Hi guys, Darth Deuces here, back with another video. And today, taking a look at some more DC Multiverse Mcfarlane figures. Taking a look at a whole wave, another kind of wave overview. I have the entire wave of our new Arkham City wave, comprising of characters that appeared in the Arkham City video game, which in my opinion, I think is the best of the Arkham franchise of games. I've played them all, or at least I've played all like the major titles anyways. And I definitely think, at least in terms of story, that Arkham City still is my favorite. It's been a little while since I played it, but yeah, it was a really good game. And I'm really glad we're getting more Arkham figures from Mcfarlane. We get one here and there sprinkled throughout the years. So we've had a couple Batmans already. But for whatever reason, towards the end of this year, we've gotten like a really large influx of Arkham genre figures. We have this whole Solomon Grundy Build-A-Figure wave. There's a Arkham Knight, Scarecrow, Red Hood, and Arkham Knight, all released or coming out. I have the Red Hood and the Scarecrow coming in the mail. And they've already announced our Arkham City Riddler coming out. So I'm hoping they keep on with that because the Arkham designs for many of these characters are some of my favorites that they've ever had from comics, movies, whatever you want to say. I think the Arkham series designs are really good, and even though they're specific for the game, I think they work pretty well in kind of any sort of display, whether you're doing comic displays, you're doing just maybe a Batman Rogues Gallery display. Like for me, I don't have like a specific Arkham shelf or anything like that. I just kind of get these guys that have that character in my Rogues Gallery, and I think they work pretty well for that as well. But yeah, this wave consists of 4 figures that all come with pieces to build the Solomon Grundy Build-A-Figure. It is Batman, Catwoman, the Penguin, and Ra's al Ghul. So I think it's a pretty good array of characters for the most part. I'm really hoping we get some more characters. I'd love to see maybe a Poison Ivy. Definitely would love to see a Mr. Freeze. If they do an Arkham City Mr. Freeze, that'd be definitely a big want for me. There's many others that they could do as well. But yeah, let's stop kind of just rambling on. Let's start taking a look at the figures. And first, we'll take a look at Batman because he is the most not new of the wave, I guess you could say. So taking a look at Batman here, like I said, he is the most reused out of the bunch. I think every other figure is all brand new mold, but Batman here does reuse pieces. I think maybe a couple of years ago now at this point, we got the Arkham Asylum Batman, and this figure utilizes a lot of that figure. But there is a fair amount of new, and I think this figure is ultimately better. We will do a comparison. But what's the same is the midsection, the groin and belt is the same, the mid-torso is the same, the upper arms are the same, and the entire legs is the same. But we do have new forearms, we do have a new cape, we do have a new head sculpt, and we do have a new upper torso, which is pretty cool. Speaking of which, the new head sculpt I think looks way better than the old one. The old one wasn't bad, but I think this one just captures the likeness from the game a lot better. The shape of the face, the jawline, I think looks a lot more accurate to how he looks in the actual game. That old one was, I think, maybe a bit too slender, didn't look quite right. This one looks a lot better. I think the ears look a lot better on this one's cowl as well. I like that a lot. I also like that they opted to go with him being in his detective mode. So if you never played the games, instead of having the whited out eyes all the time, the whited out eyes are when he's in detective mode. You can see like forensics and that sort of thing, looking for clues and all that jazz. I'm glad they went with the white out eyes. I think it looks really good on this style of Batman. I think that looks super cool. And with the whited out eyes, you can kind of fudge it as being maybe some sort of comic style Batman if you wanted to. So that's kind of cool. The cape is also new. I do like how it kind of is molded to drape over the shoulders a bit, although it does hinder some articulation. And on the back, it's kind of swaying in the wind a bit, but it's not too crazy. And it's made of a pretty pliable plastic, so it bends around pretty easily. So I really like that. This is also, prefer this over the old one. New bat logo as well to be more accurate to the game, which I think looks really nice. The belt, the gauntlets are new. They are different from the previous one. And I like how they painted the reinforced knuckles on his gloves there. That's pretty nice. And you got the outside underwear. Pretty standard. You get the boots. And then the details on the bat suit as well look pretty good. I think the proportions are okay. I've always kind of found the legs, I think, look a little on the slenderish, lanky side, I guess. I don't know what it is. They're not terrible looking, but I feel like maybe it's these thighs maybe look almost too long, maybe, I don't know. But I think overall it's a pretty good looking Batman. I really do like it. In terms of articulation, you do have a dumbbell joint in the head. He looks up an okay amount, down an okay amount, pivots decently, rotates. Hinges in the shoulders move pretty much full 90 out. They only go about that far up because the cape does hinder that. They do have a bit of butterfly motion because of those Mcfarlane joints in there. Sole at the bicep. Only a single hinge in the elbow because this is, again, like I said, reuse of an old body. So it doesn't, just gets about 90. I would have liked to have seen new double joints for that. And you got the Mcfarlane style wrist go, swivel and go up, down, or in and out, depending on how you have them configured. 2 joints in the torso, one hidden by the belt, one on the upper. Crunches forward just a bit, crunches back an okay amount, pivots a bit, and then rotates, so it's not too bad. Hip joints, full splits, which is really good. Kicks forward a decent amount. Yeah, that's pretty good. Not really any rotation. Double hinges in the knees, which move pretty good, I think. And then you have the hinges in the ankles. Don't really move up much because the boot really gets in the way. Only down a bit. Pivot, and then you do get a toe bend. So articulation is not bad. It's not the best articulated Batman that Mcfarlane Toys has put out. This mold, general mold, has been out for a while now. So it has been outdone by a few other newer Batmans. But I still think it articulates decently. I do find he can be a bit of a challenge to stand. I don't know if it's because of the feet or the way the ankle articulation works or whatever. I'm not a huge fan. It can be kind of painful to get him to stand, but there you go. In terms of accessories, I meant to do this, show this beforehand, but every figure, aside from the Build-A-Figure, comes with the standard DC display base, the black display base. Every figure also comes with their cards. So you do have Ra's al Ghul here, Catwoman, Penguin, and then Batman. For some reason, these 3 have game images for their picture, but for whatever reason, they use toy photography for Ra's al Ghul. I don't know why. Maybe there's no good images for Ra's, I guess. I don't know why they did that, but yeah. Still pretty cool. And then they all have bios in the back. So yeah, that's nice. Batman himself does also come with his grapple gun. Not sure if this is a new mold or not. I assume it's reuse, but maybe it's not. It's just cast in black, but it looks decent enough. And he holds it okay. For whatever reason, they make the grips on these grapple guns really thick. But yeah, you can put it in his hand. And he holds it decently well. Looks pretty good. Do wish he came with some more accessories, at least a Batarang. That previous Arkham figure, I do get that he came with Build-A-Figure pieces, but it would have been nice if he came with Batarang and maybe some other gadgets, so that's a little unfortunate. But I think it's a pretty solid Batman figure, honestly. And I definitely think it's an improvement over the old one. Speaking of which, we will do a quick comparison here with the old one. So here's the old one. Here's the new one. And I think, yeah, like the new one, I think just looks a lot better. I think the cape looks better. I think the head sculpt definitely looks better. I like the bat symbol more on the new one. The only things that the old one I think does a bit better is the old one has a gold painted belt with black wash, which I think looks a lot nicer than this one. This one doesn't look that good. And then the black armor bits to his suit all have a silver wash on them, and this one doesn't have that. So I think that also looks really nice. But I think overall, I do prefer the new one. Especially the head sculpt. The head sculpt is just such an improvement. Yeah, this Batman, I guess one more comparison. I'll bring out, well, you kind of saw all the scaling at the beginning. But one thing I wanted to point out is I'm not sure about the scaling here. I feel like he should be a little taller than Selena. Not by a whole lot, but I feel like just by a little bit. I feel like maybe she's a little too tall or he's a little too short. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, good Batman figure. Let's move on to the next figure. Next up, we might as well talk about Catwoman. And I wasn't sure about this figure because I've seen people praise it and I've seen people absolutely trash it. From reviews and just different posts I've seen online. Some people really like this figure and some people really don't. And I gotta say, I'm on the side of really liking it. I actually really like this figure. I can look past some, it does have some issues, but looking past its shortcomings, I think out of all the figures in this wave, this is the one I had the most fun with when it came to posing and taking pictures of, which kind of surprised me, but I really like this figure a lot. This is my first Catwoman figure in my entire collection, actually. I'm not a huge Catwoman fan. I've kind of been holding out to get that one Catwoman figure that will really kind of be my Catwoman for the collection, and I won't really bother with any others. It will be the one that does it for me. And this one does it for me. I really like this design for Catwoman. Probably my favorite that she's ever had from comics or games or movies. I like that it's kind of leaning on classic, but they give it that modernization, that practicalization to the suit. She's got a decent amount of sexiness to her, but at the same time, the suit still looks practical. It looks like a suit that'll actually protect her. It's not just some latex, skimpy looking thing. There's purpose to the suit, which is something I always liked about this design. But taking a closer look at the figure, I absolutely love the head sculpt and face paint. I think this looks so good. Mcfarlane can really do some really nice female likenesses, and this is one that I think looks absolutely awesome. The makeup looks really good with the eyeshadow, and the lips I think look really nice. The eyes are printed really well and look really great. The eyebrows look good. She's got a little bit of her hair showing through the cowl there. Goggles look really nice with those red lenses, and the ears look really good as well. Unfortunately, the goggles are part of the sculpt. They're not separate pieces. I do wish that was a separate accessory that you could put over her eyes. That would have been cool. But still looks really, really good. I really like this head sculpt a lot. She's got a little choker chain thing there around her neck. I like the collar. I think the popped up collar looks really cool. Yeah, it looks really nice. It's hard to kind of talk about proportion stuff with this figure. That sounded weird, I'll be honest. But yeah, all the details on the suit look good. The zipper is painted with silver. It looks really nice. And all the texture detail on the suit I think looks really good as well. So I'm happy with that. If it wants to... Come on. There we go. I think that all looks really good. Arms look pretty good. I do feel like maybe they're slightly too thin. She got some pretty thin arms. I feel like maybe they should be just a little bit bigger, but it's not too bad. And the sculpted detail is nice. Again, you've got those silver painted reinforced knuckles on the gloves there, which I think is cool. One hand is sculpted for gripping. The other hand can kind of sort of grip, but is more like an open, maybe clawing pose, which I think is pretty cool. She does, unfortunately, use the diaper method of having the midsection sculpt, which a lot of Mcfarlane figures have, especially their female characters. And sometimes they work okay, sometimes they don't. This one, it is fairly noticeable, unfortunately. The way it's cut really high, comes up really high. It is a bit weird looking. It's not too bad, honestly, in my opinion. I think it still melds decently, but it is noticeable. But you'll see she is packing quite a bit of cake back there. Don't want to sound too crass or anything, but sheesh. Yeah, she's got quite the proportions back there. I don't know what the sculptor was thinking. I'm not complaining per se, but from the picture on the card and from what I remember from the games, I don't remember her ass being this big. That's all I'm saying. But I'm also not complaining. But I think otherwise it looks good. The sculpted detail of the costume I think looks great. You got these different textures I think look all good. The legs there, all these different details of the suit make it look practical, which I really like, and looks good. The laces on the boots are nice. The sculpt for the joint at the ankle is hidden pretty well. And she does have heels, which I thought she'd be a little harder to stand. She's actually not too bad for standing, surprisingly, but it is still sometimes a challenge depending on the poses you're trying to get. Overall, I think she actually does look pretty good, in my opinion, of course, for the most part. Her legs do look like they might be a little too long proportionally for the rest of the body. I already said I think she's a little tall when compared to Batman, so I think the legs could have been shortened up just a little bit. But overall, I think she's pretty cool. In terms of articulation, really well articulated. Like I said, this one I think was the funnest to pose when I was like taking pictures and whatnot. Dumbbell joint in the neck, looks down a little bit, looks up just a little bit, rotates well and pivots quite a bit as well, which is good for some attitude when you're posing. Kind of wish she could look up a little better though. Hinges in the shoulders move about that far. You can fully rotate them. Swivel cut at the bicep moves fine. Double hinge elbow, which is really deep. Obviously it looks a little awkward in some poses, but goes really far. And then you've got the standard Mcfarlane wrist hinges in the wrists. 2 cuts for the torso, one hidden by the diaper piece and one at the torso there at her chest. And she goes back really far, actually, arches really far back. It doesn't go that far forward, only a little bit. pivots quite a bit, and then you get rotation. So pretty good articulation everywhere except for going forward. This is kind of weird, but not the biggest deal. Hip joints, you can get them going out pretty far. Kick out, we're quite far as well. Back just a little bit. You kind of start crushing her butt cheek in weird ways. Then you start doing that, but you can do it. Ever so slight shifting of rotation there, not too much. Double hinge in the knees, which go pretty much all the way back, which is pretty cool. And then hinges the ankles, move really far forward, inhumanly far forward, I would say. Back, pivot, and what I would call a pretty pointless toe bend, but it is there. And I don't have too many Mcfarlane female characters, but all the ones that I have, most of them have heels. And this one is by far the one that has the best articulation when it comes to heeled feet. This one, it's a lot easier to pivot the feet than those other ones, which would be She-Spawn and the Drowned. I think there's a couple others I have, but those are the ones I think of off the top of my head. In terms of accessories, obviously display base and card, like I said, and then the only other thing she comes with is she does come with her whip. It is just cast in black, but it looks pretty nice. And she has the grip hand for it, and she holds it well. And you can get some fun poses with the whip, so I think that's super cool. Definitely would have liked some interchangeable hands, some more open hands or claw hands would have been really nice, maybe some closed fists. And like I said, if you could have had the goggles go over her eyes, that'd be really cool as well. I feel like the goggles over the eyes is an incoming gold label figure probably, but yeah, it'd be nice if those were included. And we already kind of did the size comparison with Batman previously, so we're not going to go over that again. So we'll take a look at the next figure. Next up, the Penguin. Again, I think it's the first Penguin figure I've ever had, and probably the only one I ever needed to get. Partially just because I like the Penguin as a character and as a villain, but when it comes to a character design and translating into an action figure, he just makes for a boring action figure. It's a short, fat guy who's a gangsterish kind of character. But the Arkham design is probably one of my favorites. They give him some classicness to his design, but he does sport a much more of a modern sort of flamboyant gangster sort of look, which I really like. I'm a big fan of comic book gangsters characters, so I really like this look for him, and then this will be my Penguin for the shelf. But this is also kind of a boring figure because of his stature, who he is, the articulation. There's not much you could do with this guy, unfortunately. But he does accomplish what he needs to do, and it's just a good-looking Penguin figure that can get a few poses here and there. But yeah, taking a closer look, definitely the biggest draw for this guy, I think, is the head sculpt. I think it looks really good. It's not the best lighting, but yeah, I think it looks really good. I like that he has this pretty mean-looking snarl on the go. He's pretty nasty guy in the in the game, so I think this shows off his personality really well. He's got the top hat on. Unfortunately, it's not removable. Kind of wish it was. I think all the paint and sculpted detail on the head looks really nice. He's got the bottle in his eye that kind of simulates a monocle. It's got kind of the scarring around that, which looks really good. And then it's hard to tell, but around his fat of his neck there, he actually does have the sculpted and painted voice box, which is pretty cool as well. So I think that looks really cool. The rest of the figure looks nice. The jacket is really nicely sculpted with this textured detail. You've got this fur that has this subtle, not really subtle, but this bluish sort of paint in it to give it some color, which I think looks really nice. And he's got the kind of fine vest underneath there that looks pretty nice. And then the sleeves, you got some more of that fur around the cuffs there. On his left hand, he's got it wrapped up in bandages or whatever. It kind of gives a bit of a flipper look, which I kind of like that. That's cool. And he's just wearing kind of some suit pants, kind of in a really dark blue, I guess I'd say. And then he's got some dress shoes, a little bit of paint there as well, which looks pretty nice. But like I said, pretty basic looking figure and character, but it accomplishes what it needs to do. It's a good looking penguin figure. That's all it really needs to do. At least for me anyways, of course. In terms of articulation, double dumbbell joint neck actually gets a fair amount of movement, so you get some good pivot. Not really up, but decent down rotation until you get to the coat. He only goes so far because he's kind of hunched over a bit. The shoulders go out all the way. You can't rotate them all the way, and I am happy that you can't get his arms all the way down to his sides. That is important. Swivel cuts at the bicep, double hinges in the elbows work pretty well, and then your Mcfarlane style wrist joints. There is a torso joint. You're getting maybe a little bit of crunch, not really any back, and then your rotation. That's all you're going to get out of it. His hips, you go it like that far. He can barely kick out. He has a single hinge in the knee, which doesn't even go full 90. And then he has ankle joints that barely move because of the pants. Get in the way. So you're not getting this guy in crazy poses. But at least for me, I don't care that much because it's the Penguin. He's not a ninja. He's not doing any crazy acrobatic poses. He's just going to stand there, look intimidating. That's all I need him to do. In terms of accessories, the stuff that he actually comes with himself, again, just one accessory. Does come with his umbrella. It is pretty nice. The sculpted detail of it's nice. Got gold on the end, and then you got the gold handle with the penguin head on it, which I think is pretty cool. And you can get him to hold it. He has the grip hand here. So that's pretty cool. You just have him, chilling out with that. This hand also has a trigger finger, so if you want to give him a gun, you could do that as well. And then again, quickly for size comparison, here he's with the Batman from the Wave. And I think the scaling there is pretty decent. He's significantly shorter like he should be, but he's not too small, so I like that. And that's the Penguin. So lastly, before we get to the Build-A-Figure, I'll try to speed things up a little bit. We have Ra's al Ghul, which is my most anticipated from this wave. We don't get too many Ra's al Ghul figures, so and it's a character I've wanted in figure form for a while, actually. It's one of my favorites, or he's one of my favorite Batman villains. And we've got this one, and I do like the Arkham Ra's al Ghul design. I do prefer comic designs for him, I'll be honest, but this one's still really cool. He's got that kind of Japanese, or Oriental rather, I don't know exactly, kind of samurai-ish sort of ninja warrior kind of look going on. The head sculpt, I think, looks really nice. The eyes and the facial hair, I think, painted and printed on pretty well. And the hair, I think, is sculpted and painted pretty nicely as well. Looks good. His armor looks nice. I like the green color. The gold flashes and designs on it, I think, look really nice. And you got the belt and more painted detail, looks really good. I really like these tattoos on his arms here. They're printed on there really nicely and cleanly. And you got the gauntlets, which look cool, but not really too much paint to talk about. And the belt looks good. Pants, he's got some baggy pants on the go, but I think they look pretty good as well. I got some different colors of green to kind of give it some variety. And then the boots are just this dark green, but decently sculpted. And again, the hinge, they've really improved their ankle joints. They look a lot better than they used to like a year or so ago. I think he looks really good. I think proportionally he looks pretty good as well. I don't have too many issues with that. I think he looks good. Not too much to say. In terms of articulation, dumbbell joint in the neck. You can look up a bit, look down a decent amount, pivots a lot, and then rotates. Hinges at the shoulders. They go up, only up to about here. The torso piece is soft, but it's not that soft. It only goes that far. Torso piece itself is, it's like this soft plastic, and you can squish it in a fair bit. So I actually don't think there's a full torso sculpted underneath there. I think it might be kind of like some sort of like exoskeleton thing that just has articulation points and not an actual full sculpt. But swivel at the bicep, double hinges at the elbows to move well, and then again your standard Mcfarlane wrists, which get a good range of motion out of them. Torso, technically you can bend it forward, but it's not really going the way, you're not really getting much movement out of the torso. You get a bit of rotation, a bit of this movement, but nothing too crazy there. Legs can kick pretty much all the way out. They can split almost fully. Only a little bit of rotation. Double hinges in the knees, which move good, but they are a little ugly looking, I will say. And then you have your hinges in the ankles go all the way back, forward, all the way back, pivot, and then a toe bend. So he's got pretty decent articulation. Do wish he had a bit better torso articulation. There are definitely ways they could have engineered that to be better, but he still poses pretty well. And then for his accessories, again, he only comes with one thing aside from the stand and the card. He does come with his sword. The sword's pretty nice. Silver for the blade, gold for the hilt. The hilt looks good. And then the sword has some lettering on it in some language I do not know. But it looks really cool. He can hold it well. And he has 2 grip hands, so you can hold it in both hands in 2-handed poses if you want to, but he holds it well. And one thing you can do is he's got these little loops on his side. I'm not sure if they're meant for the sword or not, but you can actually store the sword on his hip if you want to do that, and it looks pretty good, and it doesn't warp the sword blade, so that's pretty nice. So yeah, he is a bit light on accessories again. I would like to see some interchangeable hands. He's a martial guy. He's going to be doing martial arts, so at least some closed fists would have been nice, but what can you do? Yeah, it is to be expected from Mcfarlane Toys at this point. So lastly, because we were taking an awful long time to do this, the Build-A-Figure is Solomon Grundy, who's one of the boss battles in the game. I think this guy looks really nice. The sculpt and paint detail is really good for the most part. I think my biggest issue with it, though, aside from maybe articulation, is the size. He is too small. In the game, at least as far as I remember Solomon Grundy being huge. Like, he was way bigger than Batman, I'm pretty sure. And then comparing them just right off the bat, he's only like not even a full head taller than Batman. So I think he definitely should be way bigger. There was a DC Collectibles or DC Direct Solomon Grundy from Arkham City years ago that I think is really big. And that one had like the removable torso piece and you see all his guts and stuff. So in terms of if you want an accurately sized one, that one might be more your speed. But luckily for me, I don't care quite so much because this is just going to be Solomon Grundy on my shelf. It doesn't need to be necessarily the Arkham City Solomon Grundy. And I think Grundy's size is varied from artist and all that sort of thing. So I don't mind it too much. He should have been bigger, but I'm not going to complain too much about it. Sculpt and paint wise though, I think he's really good. I love the head sculpt. There's all the gruesome detail. I love the expression, the yellow eyes, the black pupils look really good. And the crazy, gross looking hair. And then all the sculpted detail on the torso and all his ripped clothes and whatnot look really nice. And all the spots where he's been like put back together and whatnot is super cool. Some like weird green dry brushing, which is all really nice. Not a big fan of the way the rope on his for his belt, I guess, is painted. It comes off as kind of plasticky, I guess. Unrealistic. I wish I had like a black wash to make it look dirty and more realistic. Kind of the same thing can be said for the chains around his wrists. They do have some sort of wash to them, but I feel like they could have also taken a black wash to make them look a little more realistic. But still, really good looking. He's got tears and whatnot all throughout his pants and his clothes, and you've got all the different scarring and stitching and cuts and tears all throughout the zombified body, which all looks really good. He has a sculpted open hand and he has a sculpted closed hand, which if they're not going to include interchangeable hands, which they didn't, I do like that they at least gave you one of each on each arm. So that's good. And yeah, it's just really good looking figure. Just a little too small, but that's okay. In terms of articulation, he's got a ball joint in the neck that really barely moves up and down, but you do get a bit of rotation. Shoulder joints actually go out quite far and they rotate about that far until you get too far with the coat, but it works pretty well. Single hinges in the shoulders that move 90. Swivels at the wrist, well, in and out hinges work pretty decently for the most part. The chains around his wrist do get in the way. Waist joint in there, hidden in there, you get rotation just fine. Not much crunch, not much back, and only a little bit of pivot. Nothing too crazy. Hip joints, you get maybe about there, about that far. He's only going to kick about that far. There is a full, because of the way it's constructed, a full swivel though, which is kind of cool. And then you have single hinges in the knees that go a little shy of 90. And you have hinges at the ankles that go up, actually a fair amount, down quite a bit. And then they're a bit tight, I will say. The ankle joints are a bit frustrating to pose. And you have a pivot there, which is also kind of weirdly stuck, so I need to be careful with that. And then toe bends. So articulation is not bad. It's probably better than some Build-A-Figures that Mcfarlane has done, but you're not getting any crazy poses. He'll pose okay, but you're not getting anything too creative, unfortunately. So overall, my final thoughts on the wave is I think it's a pretty strong wave. You get a good array of different characters. One newer Batman that is reused, but I think does the reuse pretty well and looks pretty good. And then 3/4 if you count Catwoman, 4 additions to his Rose Gallery. So I think it's a good array of figures. I think they're all pretty good for the most part. Obviously, some have limitations that others don't, but for some cases, like the Penguin, it don't bother me so much because he doesn't need to be doing much anyways. If I was going to rank this wave, I would say Penguin's probably my least favorite just because it's the most boring figure when it comes to posing and all that. Then I would say maybe Batman, just because I didn't need this version of Batman, but it is still a nice upgrade to the previous Arkham Asylum Batman. Then next, probably Solomon Grundy. He looks really good. Articulation could be a bit better, and he definitely could have been bigger. And then it's kind of a tie between Ra's al Ghul and Selina. I think they're both really good. Honestly, I thought Ray should be my favorite, but I think I might have to give it to Catwoman be my favorite and Ray should be my second favorite. Ray is really great. He looks great. He poses pretty well, but I really like the look of the new Catwoman. I think she poses really nicely, and even despite this, maybe the small issues she has, yeah, I really enjoy that figure a lot. But that's pretty much it for this video. It went pretty long, so if you stuck it out for the whole 30 minutes, I do salute you. Thank you for that. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of this wave. Let me know what other Arkham characters from the games you'd like to see made as figures. It'd be interesting to see what figures maybe I didn't think of that could be added to the line. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you guys so much for watching. And I'll see you guys all in the next one.